Rick Israel. Welcome to the FMTV Meditation Challenge. So today we're going to discuss how meditation can help you be happy, how it works, and we'll give you some choices so that you can incorporate meditation in your life. So just take a comfortable seat and get ready. So firstly, I'm a psychotherapist, and I actually have graduate degrees in philosophy, in psychology, and then in Buddhism and Hinduism. So hopefully all these concepts will be familiar to you today, and if not, then you can just ask questions, or we'll answer everything that you need to know in the next half an hour. So welcome. All right. So one of the reasons we meditate is because we want to be happy. And as Schopenhauer said, it is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it's impossible to find it anyplace else. So why is happiness so challenging today? And what I'm going to propose is that the one thing that correlates strongly to happiness is the quality of your intimate relationships, how you connect to other people. And this is where meditation can really help. So we're going to have to look at why intimacy is so challenging today. And what I'm going to say is we need to learn how to be authentic. And that to me is an even more difficult challenge. So again, meditation is one of the sharpest tools in order for us to learn how to show up authentically. Because we want people to authentically love our authentic selves, but how can they love what we don't show them, right? So we got to look at how and why we are inauthentic. Okay, so I'm going to just joke around and say, we're inauthentic because so much of our mental lives is devoted to trying to look hip and cool, or smart and right, or successful, more successful. So that's how we became inauthentic. And there's a paradox here, because my main understanding is that as sentient beings, we want to be loved unconditionally, without conditions. And we've grown up in this crazy, highly competitive society that mostly gives us tools to gain love conditionally, because we're hip and cool, or smart and right, or successful and more successful. So, I mean, Leonard Cohen said this much more better than I did, much more eloquently than I did, when he said, "We are not mad, we are human. We want to love, and someone must forgive us for the paths we take to love. For the paths are many and dark, and we are ardent and cruel in our journey." Okay, so we all know language to get us admired, but, at the end of the day, do we want to be admired, or do we want to be loved? Because that's what we really have to look at. So I always joke around when people come into my office, and I'll say, "Hey, what do you want to say on your tombstone? Do you want to say, used to be really admired? Do you want to say, wealthiest person in this cemetery? Do you want it to say, owned a large house and a beach house too?" No. Any sane person wants their tombstone to say, beloved. And yet, throughout the course of our day, we get angry, we get upset, we get sad, we get frustrated. And none of these things contribute to that overarching goal of having love in our life. So that's why we need to be able to reboot our hard drives and take 5 or 10 minutes every morning just to figure out how we're showing up in the world, right? This is my favorite tombstone because I live in Santa Monica, and there's this self-righteousness, like people teach yoga and our psychotherapists, and we have to be places 14, 15 hours a week. We're not working in Foxconn factories. We're not working in coal mines. So I go to lunch at Whole Foods, and I meet one of these yoga teachers, And I'm like, how are you? And they're like, oh my God, I'm crazy busy. And I'm like, did you cure leukemia this week? You know, this is such a privilege. You're teaching yoga. You work 14 hours a week. This is amazing. You know, so yeah. Most of us are not as crazy busy as we like to believe we are. All right, so that's one of the ways that we are misguided, you know, and we're enrolling people in our own neuroses when we tell them that we're crazy busy. So why would we want to do that, right? So how did we become inauthentic? Let's take a look at the human mind, how it was built and what it was designed to do. Okay, so I believe that our mind's primary job is to try to stave off future trauma, keep us alive and out of harm's way. And it does this by, you know, taking in all the information, mostly from the traumas that we experienced as children, and then it does this crazy thing where it says, wow, that was really traumatic, that was really humiliating, that was really frustrating. I am never going to let that happen again. I'm going to lift weights, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to be super sexy, I'm going to be super smart. And, you know, I'm going to say that we become what we love and we become what we hate, and both are inauthentic. So again, the main goal of this is to get you inspired to meditate so that you can show up authentically and then get the love that you really want. So I hope that's a great motivation to try on a new thing, you know, meditation. And to do this, I believe we have to know how our minds work, because a lot of the time when we're meditating, we're going to have to be dealing with our minds, right? So, Einstein famously said that whatever level of consciousness created the problem will be unable to fix it. So that's why we're trying to get the mind to look at the mind. Now, Marshall McLuhan said this even better to me. He said, I don't know who discovered water, but I doubt it was a fish. So we all have a way of being in the world, and we have to understand how that was built so that we can make some tweaks or some hacks in order to show up authentically and get the love that we really crave. And again, you know, I'm just sharing tools. These are the tools I've learned over the past 30 years, because as Maslow had said, when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem resembles a nail. So today I'm going to give you 2 or 3 new tools. Just think of this 30 minutes as a dressing room at your favorite store, and you're trying on new blouses and shirts, and hopefully one of them will fit, and you'll take that away with you, and the rest of them you just leave behind. All right. So if any of you have practiced meditation, then you'll probably know already that the mind has a mind of its own. So what does everybody see here? 3 upside down women, correct? This is what you really see. This is called the Thatcher effect. Take a look closely. By the way, if you click right below this, there should be a PDF file that you can scroll through at the same time. I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier, but you can scroll through the PDF file if you need to see these images any bigger. So I'm going to show this to you again. This is called the Thatcher effect. The Thatcher effect. Look as closely as you want at their eyes and their lips. You know, this is what your mind does. Your mind fills in blanks, right? And it does this with assumptions, with prejudices, with fears, with expectations, right? And so, again, all of these things, they kept you alive when you were a kid, which it's fantastic, right? You're here, it's great. And they might be hindering you from showing up vulnerably and authentically to get the love that you want. That'll, you know, keep you at the high end of your happiness spectrum. So we'll do a little, this is just the last thing. So again, Thatcher effect, take a look at it on the PDF file if you can't see it. And this is a joke I always do in my class. So everybody, wherever you are, all over the world, just in front of your computer, shout out, what's the color of snow? And what do cows drink? 99% of you just said the word milk because I primed you by showing something white, but as you know, Cows drink water, they make milk. So what I'm trying to say is that our thoughts, our feelings, the way we act, they're maladaptive if you look at them. So again, the only panacea, the only way to transcend that is through authenticity. And meditation is the best tool to, start your day so that you can show up in that authentic way. I love this. I just thought this was hysterical. So the guy's wearing a hat, obviously, but he's shaved. Anyways, you get it. Okay. So for me, there's no immaculate perception, meaning that we all have a map of reality, which is basically our interpretation of the way things happen. And, the map is not the territory, right? If I say the color red and you think red, how do we know that we're imagining the same color? We don't. There's no certainty in the world. But, we have to use language to mediate these things. So we have to learn how to show up in a loving, compassionate way, because our mind is basically primed to have these fears, prejudices, expectations, and assumptions. So we have to be able to take our minds off of autopilot and just transcend that matrix of assumptions for a few minutes, and create that anchor for the rest of our day, so we know when we get spun out that we can always come back to just this and we don't have to feed into the craziness. Okay, so I've written this book on authenticity, and authenticity to me is attachment, atonement, attunement, presence, and congruence. So I'm just going to go through the presence section right now and teach you how to get present right now, which means not allowing your mind to drag you into the past or into the future. And one of my DVDs that I think is on FMTV, Yoga for Depression and Anxiety, says that depression relates to thoughts about the past, and anxiety relates to thoughts about the future. The past is dead and gone. The only thing that exists is your story about it, and the future doesn't yet exist. The only thing that exists are your expectations. So how can depression and anxiety exist? All right, so what is mindfulness? What is getting present? Jon Kabat-Zinn said, mindfulness is the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally, very important, to the unfolding of experience moment by moment. That's mindfulness. That's the definition that we use. Okay, so isn't being aware of our thoughts and feelings, isn't that super simple? Can't we just shut this off and say, dude, I'm done. I already did that. I'm perfectly aware of my craziness. Well, what I'm going to say is that for us, mindfulness, I like to speak hyperbolically, mindfulness is impossible. And I'm going to tell you why. 3 reasons. So the first reason that mindfulness is extremely difficult, impossible, is because you cannot tell the mind what not to think. Think about that for a second. Well, let's just do an exercise. So, sit up straight. The spine is erect. Chin is level. The jaw is unclenched. Gravity gently pulls the flesh off the cheekbones. We close the eyes. So we create the form to meditate. And for the next 5 minutes, whatever you do, don't imagine Mickey Mouse having sex with Minnie Mouse. Okay, so just trust me, you don't need 5 minutes to do that exercise. You can't tell the mind what not to think. If I said, don't think that car accident, don't think of your parents' divorce, don't think of this traumatic event, what the mind has to do is put it in and then negate it. So There's a joke, if psychotherapists could tell you what not to think, we would put ourselves out of business, essentially. All right, so that's the first reason. You can't tell the mind what not to think. And there's no off switch either, right? You can't just say, shut off. So, that's one characteristic of it. But let's look at why. The reason is because of our sense of self, our personal identity. And we get that through that hamster wheel that's going on in our head. So Descartes famously said, his cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And that, I believe, put our society on a misguided trajectory because we're addicted to thinking. And actually, it should be, I breathe, therefore I am, because breath is life. It's not, I think, therefore I am. Correct? All right. If you look at our language, there's this equal sign, right? I am sad. I'm a doctor. I am angry. Incredibly imprecise, right? Everything's ephemeral. So I'm a human being, and right now I'm experiencing the emotion of excitement, or I'm experiencing the emotion of sadness. But the problem is that our language solidifies, it reifies things, and because we're constantly creating our personal identity because we're so addicted to our sense of self. And again, this is the beauty of meditation, just getting that calm, clean, non-thinking breath in there, right? All right, so the third reason that mindfulness is impossible is because our minds have a negativity bias. Most of our thoughts are redundant, the same that you had yesterday, and most of them are negative. So let's take a look quickly. Why is that? The reason is because I believe we raise children in our society the same way that we tame pets, and most of our interactions with adults are behavior modification in some way. Like they're telling us what not to do. Babies want to eat when they're hungry, sleep when they're tired, poop when they have to poop, and play when they're playful. And what we do to civilize them and get them into productive members of society, we say, don't run out into the street, don't stick your tongue in a socket, don't jab your sister with a fork, don't do this, don't do that. And now we have this epidemic of negative self-talk, right? You go into any of these 12-step meetings or anything like that, and people are like, yeah, I'm not good enough, and I'll only be happy when I'm married, I'll only be happy when I'm not married, I'll only be happy when I have $1 million. Where did we get those thoughts? When people come into my office and they have this negative self-talk, I say, hey, whose voice is that? Were you born with that voice in your head? No, you weren't, because, as Jacques Lacan says, language thinks me, right? Again, there's this trick going on, and this is why we have to spend these 15 minutes looking at how meditation works. Because if you don't know how meditation works, then you might get the fruits of it, but you really have to understand, get a perspective on how your mind was built and what it was designed to do. Because as children, what we do, because we want this unconditional love, and we don't understand why these people are saying like, oh, I'll love you if you get good grades, or I'll love you if you learn how to use a fork, or I'll love you if you do this or that. We develop a false self, a facade, persona, in order to survive our childhoods. We develop a false self in order to survive our childhoods and try to get our emotional and psychological needs met the best we can, right? So, adults are just children with better excuses, but we're that same, facade, that we're that same inauthentic persona. And again, this is what we're trying to cure in some ways, because mindfulness means trying to get some insight into how the mind is operating. It's like, the brain is the hardware, the mind is the software, and, when you used to have a PC, you'd have to shut it off to empty the cache, and that's exactly the perfect metaphor for how meditation works. Because we're on autopilot, and the cache gets filled up, and we get frustrated, and we need to reboot our hard drives. And this is why we meditate or practice yoga every day. For me, yoga is just a moving meditation, period. And, we might get some insight into, our default mechanism if your mind is always planning, or if your mind is always remembering, or if your mind is always fantasizing. So again, this is the beauty of meditation, and I hope that inspires you to just be able to take this challenge and sit with FMTV for the next 12 days, because learning how your mind was built and how you can make tweaks to refine it and keep yourself at the higher end of your happiness spectrum is probably the most important thing you'll ever do, really. I mean, what's more important, right? But if I just say meditate or sleep or sneeze, you can't do it. So now let's figure out how meditation works, right? We have to trick the mind into releasing that hamster wheel, that thinking apparatus, right? So this is how I teach meditation. I can't talk to you, but I hope you can all see the duck, that's the eye, right? And then the rabbit, and that's also the eye, those are the ears, right? So the duck and the rabbit. So F. Scott Fitzgerald famously said that the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold opposite ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function, right? So maybe some of you think you're geniuses and you can do this thing called soft focus. I'm going to argue that you can make it flicker very fast. You can see the rabbit, you can see the duck, but it's impossible to hold both at the mind at the same time. This is a function of the prefrontal cortex. It breaks things down into good, bad, boy, girl, black, white, right? Again, you're getting an idea about how your mind works. Can't tell it to shut off. Can't tell it to not think of something. What do you see here? Two faces and a vase. Everyone see that? Make it flicker real fast. Two profiles and a vase. What do you see here? The monks and then the chess pieces. Everyone see that? And then here, this is the most difficult one. I'm not going to go into this. Just go on, put in old woman, young woman, optical illusion. And again, this is the old woman's nose and her chin. And then the young woman is looking that way, and that's her chin, and that's her nose. Can you see that? All right, so now we're ready. Hope you stayed with me this long. So you can't tell the mind what not to think. But what we can do is gently guide it to an anchor. And that's what I hope to give you today, is just, there's 7 billion people on planet Earth. That means there's 7 billion different types of meditation. There's no one size fits all here, right? You can't just go in and do one thing and think it's going to work for everybody. You have to find what works for you. And today I'm going to give you 3 different types of meditation. So you can't tell the mind what not to think. But what we do is we find an anchor. And so for our first anchor today, we're going to just spend a minute trying to concentrate on our breaths. So the first thing we do when we meditate is we create the frame. You want the spine erect. Hopefully the hips are a little bit higher than the knees, right? Chin is level. Gravity gently pulls the flesh off of the cheekbones. The forehead is relaxed. And let's just raise our shoulders to our ears and lower them gently down the back. So if you go out into the street, you'll notice a lot of people walking around like this. Why is that? Because they were hurt in love. Because they're wearing their shoulders to protect their heart. So what we're doing is the exact opposite. We're going to open up our heart to all the grace, love, and abundance in the universe, right? So our hearts are open. Once the physical frame is created, we can close the eyes. And a lot of us spend most of our waking hours in fight or flight mode. So we want to take ourselves off of that. And if you notice, your average breath is probably about 4 or 5 seconds on the inhalation and 4 or 5 seconds on the exhalation. So we're going to try to double that right now. We're just going to concentrate on those long, deep, delicious inhalations and long, deep, fluid exhalations. So exhale everything out. And then inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And if distractions enter the mind, you gently guide your attention back to those long, deep, delicious inhalations and long, deep, fluid exhalations. And if you need words to describe in your mind what you're doing for the next minute, use the Buddha's instructions. He said, breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. And breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. And breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. And let's just sink in. Keep our attention as best we can on those deep inhalations and deep exhalations for 1 minute. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. And breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. So we're going to try a second meditation in a second, but for the newcomers, here's a couple of things that people say about meditation. Meditation, it's just one insult after another. And Dan Harris says, meditation is like being kidnapped by the most boring person in the world. So for this second meditation, we're going to use a visualization. And again, we're trying to get some insight into the stream of consciousness that creates our personal identity. So for the second meditation, we'll use this ancient technique of imagining ourselves sitting at the bank of a river, and there's a leaf and a stream in front of us, and whenever a thought comes into our head, I wonder what time this is going to be over. We take the thought, we put it on the leaf, and we watch it gently float down the stream. Okay? So again, a thought will come into our mind, we'll place it on a leaf, and we'll watch it gently float down the stream, and then we'll see it exit our mind stream. It'll be gone, right? You won't see it anymore. And what you'll notice is another thought comes into your head. What am I going to have for lunch? You take that thought, put it on a leaf, and you watch that one float down the stream and through your mind stream. So again, I'm just giving you a couple of examples. And for the second one, just sit up straight, chin level, and for 1 minute, whatever thoughts enter your mind, place them on a leaf and let them just float through your mind, down the stream, and when they exit, you place another one on there. So, visualization to observe our thoughts. 1 minute. Another thought enters your mind, you place it on a leaf, and you watch it gently float down the stream. Gently guide our attention back into the room. So William James said, our greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. And the first step to being able to choose our thoughts is to be able to observe them. So whatever visualization you can use, whether it's clouds going through the sky, or you imagine yourself at the bottom of a pool and there's a Snoopy bubble over your head and you put your thoughts into it, if you can just observe your thoughts, then you can create some distance and you can say, I am not my thoughts. And I always ask people to please point to the part of your body that was observing your thoughts. And a lot of people point here. Mind in Tibetan is here. The point is that mind is non-local, right? So whatever part can observe your thoughts, I like to think of as my higher self. You know, you can think of it as mystery or nirvana or moksha or God or your soul. But if you can gain any distance from your thoughts, then you can reduce your stress. Again, this is how meditation works. I think so. If you want to be happy, you know, one of the things that you can do is meditate. And I'm going to give you one last thing to keep you at the end of your happiness spectrum. So your mind creates these resentments, these fears, these expectations, these prejudices in order to keep you safe because you were traumatized. We were all traumatized by being human. And you can't pull all the weeds in the garden. You can't say, oh, I'd be happy now if I went to Harvard, if I married this person, if I didn't marry this person, if I won the lottery. Those things didn't happen. You are who you are today. And you cannot pull all those woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn'ts out of your head, right? You can't do it. You just can't tell the mind what not to think. You can't shut it off. People have been trying for thousands of years with heroin and opiates, things like that. But you can gain some insight into, how your mind was built and why you have those fears and prejudices. And then you can learn how to replace them with little flowers of gratitude. So if you take one thing away, this little fortune cookie is learning how to replace, and this is what the FM TV challenge is all about, right? Just like being grateful for the gifts that we do enjoy. So the 10 things that are proven to make people happy are: make gratitude lists, make a gratitude visit to somebody and thank someone, smile, get enough sleep, exercise, spend some time in nature, perform random acts of kindness, avoid comparisons with other people. Everyone's on their own path, so it's pointless to say, oh, I'd be happy if I were Angelina Jolie, right? Everyone has their positive and negative things that happen to them in life, so there's no point to comparing yourself with anybody else. You wouldn't want the negative things that happen to whomever you supposedly admire. So experiences make people happier than possessions. You know that walking through the streets of Paris at dusk will, you're going to remember that on your deathbed. But the handbag you had, you will not remember. So experiences are more important than possessions. Vocation is one of the most important things, and again, this is what I talk about in my book. Voco in Latin means calling. So this is a whole other video I could do, but you have to know your vocation. What is the universe telling you to do? Joseph Campbell famously said, follow your bliss, but listening to the universe to tune into what you should be doing during your limited time on planet Earth, and finding what you love. And then the first thing is meditate. But right now, I'm going to combine two of these things, gratitude visit and meditation, for our last meditation. So, what does this photo mean to you? This photo means nothing to you. But on January 6, 1985, Dr. Thomas Rhoda was called into Greenwich Hospital to amputate my leg. And he arrived, and my face had been blown off my head, and my leg was all mangled into hundreds of pieces, and my knee was up here. And instead of doing this procedure that had been done for hundreds of years, he said, oh, I just read this article, the Zickel nail apparatus. I want to try something new. So he put me in traction, and he saved my leg. I practiced yoga yesterday. I went running the day before. And so I was living in Paris on the 6e étage, which is 7 floors of a walk-up, in 1991. And I was writing at the time, and so I had to go up and down the stairs like 30 times a day to get my rejection letters. And on January 6th, 1991, I thought when I got to the top of the stairs, wow, this is really amazing. I couldn't do this with one leg. So I wrote Dr. Rhoda a letter, and I said, I walked up 7 flights of stairs 30 times today. I walked around the Jardin de Luxembourg. I rode my bike. Thank you very much for taking the road less traveled. So this is a picture. I actually went back from a high school reunion after 25 years, and I called them up after sending letters every January 6th for 25 years, and I said, can I take you to breakfast? And, if you ever want to meet your maker, have breakfast with the man who didn't amputate your leg. So the reason I tell that story is because you have a Dr. Rhoda in your life. you have someone who gave birth to you, who sent you to college, who did something when you were down, you know? And so for this last meditation, I just want you to think, or you can journal, do whatever you have to do for 2 minutes. You know, for me, when someone says do a gratitude meditation, super simple. I have 2 legs, you know? Right in front of my office, there's some kind of facility, and there's a guy in a wheelchair with 1 leg who I see every day. And so for me, if someone says, what are you grateful for? I have 2 legs. Most of you probably have 2 legs also. We have human consciousness. We have a couple of loving friends. We have roofs over our heads. We have technology, you know. 3.5 billion people live on less than $1.90 a day. 6,500 children are going to die in Africa of diarrhea and one other thing that you can go to the store and get. It's a pill for and cure. You know, we're amongst the most privileged human beings that have ever walked the face of the earth. And 22 million Americans take antidepressants every day. So for 2 minutes, we're going to do a gratitude meditation. Just sit up, elongate the breath, close the eyes, and think of all the things that you're grateful for. Gently guide our attention back into the room. So I started this by saying, when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem resembles a nail. So meditation is one new tool for many of you, or finding the right meditation that works for you. There's walking meditations, there's yoga nidras, there's kriya yogas, there's all sorts of meditations that you can experience, and that will hopefully give you some way of being more authentic, being more present, and being more grateful for who you are and the incredible privileges that we all enjoy. And, Gandhi famously said that we have to be the change we want to see in the world. And Alice Walker said that we are the ones we have been waiting for. It starts with us. We have to break this chain of unskillful solutions, of dull tools that maybe our parents or our teachers or our politicians. We have to show up in a world in a new, loving, and compassionate way in order to bring about the loving world that we want to live in, right? So I hope that one thing, I don't know which one, resonated with you today, and that it inspired you to partake in this FMTV challenge for the next 12 days and just try on this amazing experience of meditation, being able to just, as Ram Dass said, be here now, sink into the present moment, and show up in a new way. So I'm Ira Israel. All this information is in my new book, How to Survive Your Childhood Now That You're an Adult, A Path to Authenticity and Awakening. I'd like to thank Laurentine, James, Yvette, everyone at FMTV for allowing me to do this, and we will take any benefits that we cultivated through these 3 meditations into our lives by raising our hands to our forehead and asking for clarity of consciousness for the rest of this beautiful day. We're going to lower our thumbs to our lips and ask for clarity of communications with all of our loved ones for the rest of this beautiful day. And then we'll lower our thumbs back down to our heart, and we'll ask for clarity of emotions, clarity of sentiment for the rest of this beautiful day. So, whatever is divine in me salutes the divine in you. Namaste.